Welcome into episode 293 of the Skate Podcast. I'm Brian DeFelice, joined by Bridget Prue and Scott McLaughlin, who is down in Miami, Sunrise, Florida area. Correct,
Not
Scott?
quite yet. Right now I'm still in Tampa. I got to make the drive over later today.
Okay, so Scott's down in the Sunshine State, already looking like he's got. Apparently, it's just the lighting, but he already looks like he's got some sunburn going on.
I mean, I was outside for about 15 minutes yesterday, and I'm Irish enough that might be all it takes. So,
Yes, that is. You're right. I'm pretty sure I noticed the redness too. So tomorrow you're really gonna be. By the next podcast recording, you're gonna be like a lobster.
He needs Bridget's fire Hockey East hat to help shade him from the sun.
I got one. They gave him to media, so
Yeah.
I just didn't bring on the trip with me, but
Very sharp.
Yeah.
So we have a mailbag episode today, but before we get into that, I think we should talk about the Bruins current event story today. Because about an hour before recording or so, the Bruins held a practice at Warrior, and media members that were in the house. Scott, you picked a bad day to not be there, so you could translate.
I know,
for us.
apparently.
So the story goes that Jim Montgomery, 5 minutes into practice, leaned into the Bruins, shouting, basically wake the fuck up, and proceeded to do sprints for the Bruins. Well, there's a lot of meat in this bone. I'll just throw it to you guys quickly here.
Yeah, I mean, so we saw him do this once earlier this season. I don't think he did it at all last year. Obviously, it's not a card you can play all that often, but I think twice, 4 months apart or whatever it is fine. Yeah, and he said, quoting from Connor Ryan, who was there, Montgomery afterwards said, "I hated the way we finished the game in Philly, and we weren't prepared to start practice today." So obviously some frustration there, and we've seen now 2 straight, pretty subpar efforts from the Bruins. I wouldn't say they were total stinkers in the vein of Calgary or Washington right after the break. I mean, they hung around in both games, but you're at a part of the season now with 10 games left where, you got to be doing more than just trying to hang around and keep things close. Like it's time to turn it on and get ready for the playoffs. And the last 2 games, they certainly haven't brought that kind of intensity. So yeah, I can absolutely see if you're Montgomery and, you show up to practice today after a day off Sunday and the intensity still isn't there. Yeah, it seems to me like a pretty good time to kind of lay in and be a hard ass and not just kind of, oh, well, there's still 10 games. We can ramp it up next week or whatever. Like, no, I like hearing that it's, that he decided like today was the day to lay into them.
Well, yeah, I mean, it was a slow start. It was very obviously a slow start against Philly. First 2 periods, it was like, I just felt like I was just watching them circle. Just like, let's just pass. Let's just like go. Like, it was like going through the motions of hockey, not really intensely like attacking or anything like that. And it's about time to start ramping up for the playoffs. And you saw, just a mid-regular season performance against Philly. And I know Razor, because we talk to Razor all the time now, and then we talked to him yesterday. It already feels like 3 days ago because I had such a long day yesterday. I went to the women's championship game, Ohio State won. Anyway, so
Bridget, I had to deal with JetBlue all day yesterday. So
oh, I know. I
want to hear about
bad.
long days.
Yeah, you want to know what me and Scott did yesterday? So we recorded Sunday skate in the morning. I woke up at 6. I don't know what time Scott woke up. His flight got delayed by like a half an hour. So we're like, we have time. We went to get a beer at Widowmaker. So then I bring him to the airport. And then I drive up to New Hampshire, women's championship game, drive back, get home late. I got home after you did, Scott. So you can't even complain. He's complaining that ending 90 minutes late was a hellish day. A hellish day. Scott, I've gotten places 4 hours late at 3 a.m. I've had flights land in the wrong airport. You had an inconvenience.
as I tried to explain, I don't care about me. I care about my 91-year-old grandfather to stay up late. That was
Okay.
the bigger issue.
But that part of the story was the first thing he said was, I almost missed my MLB fantasy draft. And then I was like, I don't feel bad.
Well, yeah, well, I had to walk in. So I had my fantasy draft Sunday night, and I walked into my grandfather's like 5 minutes before it started. So it's like, hi, Papa. Okay, I gotta do a fantasy baseball draft. Like, not ideal, but you know,
Yeah.
or well, we were all here. Brian, I think.
There he is. There he is. So anyway,
Yeah, I don't know what's going on with this.
that was our Sunday. What I was saying was, like Razor, he's very, very optimistic, right? And Scott is the more pessimistic, and I'm somewhere in between, and I think Brian's somewhere in between. And what Razor would say, and we'll talk to him again soon, but is that okay? They're gonna have some of these games. It's not, even though it's almost the end of the season, there's still plenty of time. There's a month of time left. Don't get worried about it. But like, clearly it is of concern to Jim Montgomery that his team is not going to be ready to play playoff hockey when it matters, because they're playing teams that are trying to hold on to their spot. That are playing more desperate than them. And they have to find a way in the regular season to ramp it up, to find that level. Otherwise, you get into the playoffs and you're cold. And you're like, you're trying to figure it out then. You need to figure it out before then.
Yeah, and look, at the end of the day, the Bruins are going to enter the playoffs. There's going to be 16 teams in the playoffs, and they'll be middle of the pack, I would say, as far as pure talent goes. And maybe even a little bit less than that, because if you take away their top player, regardless, either way, they don't have, like I said before, they don't have enough talent and to not have the work ethic. And I think back to recently on the whatever the podcast is called, for the Centennial podcast, I forget what it's called. Cue the Memories.
Cue the Memories.
Cue the Memories. They talked about, Claude Julien talked about, and Ferentz and Bergeron, how that championship team, they practiced harder than they played in the games, it felt like. And it's no secret that's why they were a championship team, because their work ethic was unmatched. And look, I'm not at these Bruins practices, and I so I can't speak from firsthand experience, but based on, this is not coming from Brian, this is coming from their head coach, damning them that they're not ready to practice. And when you're coming off of some subpar performances, and you're about to play the team ahead of you in the standings in the division, the team that knocked you out last year, the team that embarrassed you in doing so, and that is the cream of the crop in the conference, and you come out flat in a practice, that would never happen with the 2011 Boston Bruin team. And so that's really all I have to say about that. What if there's no chance in hell that this Boston Bruins team does anything in the postseason if they aren't out working and out detailing their opposition, because they don't have the talent to get away with it. And so the fact that these players can't recognize that, I think, I'm not sure what the issue is there, but there are leaders on this team. Brad Marchand's a leader. He was around in 2011. He knows how that team practiced. So I look to him, but I also look to Charlie McAvoy and David Pastrnak and that next wave. All you hear these guys talk about is how prideful they are that they're a Boston Bruin and that they get to carry the torch in this organization. Okay, well then why are their practices like this then? Kind of unacceptable if you ask me. So they better, as Montgomery said, wake up.
Yeah, and I think for the most part they still practice hard. When I'm there and like I see guys working and battling, and there's hitting, and like there's good one-on-one battles. So I don't think it's, certainly not that they can't do it or don't do it. It's, listen, you're gonna have bad practices over the course of the season. You play 82 games, you have over 100 practices. They're not all going to be great, but I think the timing of this, for it to come on the heels of back-to-back, kind of lackluster efforts after an off day, like that's when it shouldn't happen. If this is, between games, or it's your third practice of the week, or, whatever, like, sometimes you don't get the schedule quite right, and maybe you practice an extra day you shouldn't have. That's not the case here. Like, this is the start of a new week. As you mentioned, you're getting ready for Florida and Tampa. Like, this should have
In
been a really good.
Washington
Yeah, like this should have
and
been a really good
Nashville.
practice.
Like,
Right.
it's not it's to your point, Scott, yes, off practices happen, and I'm not and again, this is not me. This is Jim Montgomery. We're only reporting this because this is now a story today. So it's not coming from the skate pod yelling at the Bruins. Their head coach did. So we're just reacting to it. But it's not that they had a bad practice, it's when they had a bad practice. And that to me is unacceptable. To your point, there will be off days, off practices over an 82 game schedule with practices in there. But this 110% should never be one of them. And if it was, which it sounds like it was to start, that's inexcusable. How are you not how are you not sharp and ready to go for this practice?
Yeah, and this their only practice before two really tough games. It's their only practice before Florida and Tampa. So I mean, because they don't have a day in between those games. So this was their last chance to tune up for that, to try to work on things that didn't go well in Philly or against the Rangers. So yeah, it's hopefully it's the last time we hear about it, right? Like, for everyone's sake, like that, the fact that, and we've talked about this before in terms of fans cheering and booing, like when's right. It's like, well, we always are paying more attention to the effort than the outcome in the regular season. And if the effort's not there, then you're going to get practices like this where you're going to get punished. And it doesn't happen a whole lot with the Bruins. It didn't happen at all last year, I don't think so. But obviously that was a different team, different personnel completely. Do you want to get to the mailbag now? I
Yeah.
will.
So
I will start. I picked this one to start just because we're on this topic kind of already, and then I'll go back to some of the other normal questions. But because this kind of became more relevant, we got an email from Kim, and I'm going to skip to her question about Jim Montgomery. So this one says, do you see Monty on the hot seat if the Bruins don't make it past the first round, or does that not matter because technically this is a transition year? I assume he's safe until the end of next season when expectations will be different.
I mean, listen, the expectations for the Bruins every year are to make a deep run. And even this year, whether it's fair or not, like, their expectations internally were they were a team that was going to contend. And they've been at or near the top of the standings all year. I think anytime the Boston Bruins go out in the first round in back-to-back years, the coach is probably on the hot seat. And that's not even an opinion of whether I think he should be or not, because I think Montgomery's mostly done a very good job. But obviously there were questions about, some of his decision making in the playoffs last year. And I think if they lose in the first round this year, it's, there's probably going to be questions about whatever he does or doesn't do. There always is. There's always second guessing. So I think I would be surprised if he got fired. Like, unless they get swept, right? I mean, if they just no show, like if they have a total disastrous showing in the playoffs, then maybe that's on the table. If they play a competitive long series and lose, I'd be surprised if he got fired, but I would not be surprised if he's on the hot seat and, it's at least under consideration.
My thoughts are if he coached the way he did last year with minimal intervention and letting the captains kind of take control and he's said this before, like he thought that the room had it under control, so he didn't do as much. But you see the interventions that he's making today, and you see like the attempts to get the effort out, and we're kind of just watching him push them more this year than last year, to try to get them to not have the same results. So I don't think like we're watching him fail during the regular season. I don't know if you guys can think of a specific game where it's like, okay, wow, he really should have done this, or like there was no moment where it was, to me at least, was like, oh wow, why did he start this goalie, or why did he put this pair together, or why did he? I just don't think that there's been like mistakes so far, but obviously those things are amplified in the playoffs, and everything's going to be up for criticism with the goalie rotation or whatever, what have you, resting guys, playing guys. It gets amplified in the playoffs. I don't think that the second year is going to be a year that determines him getting fired. I think he'll get more time than that. I mean, he won Coach of the Year last year. He represented the Atlantic Division in the All-Star game this year as the best coach for the Atlantic, so to speak. I do think he's a good coach. I think that Sweeney understands that. I don't think that the relationship is frayed. So I think that he's probably got more time than just this season if it goes wrong in the first round.
And he may have that leash, Bridget. To answer the question, unfortunately, his predecessors didn't give us the opportunity to see what happens in that second year, because with Claude Julien and Bruce Cassidy each lost in the first round in their first year as Bruins head coach. Julien's second year, second round. Cassidy's second year, second round. So neither one of them had back-to-back first-round exits for us to kind of see an example before Jim Montgomery. Now, Claude Julien went first round, second round, cup, first, cup, second. Cassidy went first round, second round, cup, second, first. When I say cup, I just mean finals appearance, not winning it necessarily. So for Monty, it's this season. We don't know if he bows out in back-to-back first rounds. We'd have to go back to honestly, Scott. I don't know if you have a better memory or Bridget than me on this one, but I mean certainly early 2000s. Or 90s for a coach to have back-to-back. Maybe Pat Burns. Did Pat Burns have back-to-back? I don't know. Mike Sullivan, I think, was maybe one and done. Maybe Sullivan had two. I don't know. In any event, it kind of depends how it happens. I tend to agree, Bridget. I think he might have a leash beyond the first round this year, beyond this year, if it's a hard-fought first-round series, because the Bruins management knows that this roster is not the greatest in the conference, certainly as it pertains to the top playoff teams. But you can't have your cake and eat it too, right? The standings tell you they are where they are. So what's the excuse then? You can't just be like, well, we were where we were, but we weren't as good as we thought we were. Well, that's not fair, because all year you're taking credit for being one of the top teams. So I don't think it works that way. I guess it depends, to Scott's point, how they lose. If they lose in the first round, if they get past the first round, he's obviously safe. If they lose in the first round in quick fashion, I think all bets are off.
But I think that what saves him as well is that he clearly, as of right now, we'll see how they respond to the discipline, but he hasn't lost the room. And a lot of times that's a really big determining factor of where you think that the team is going in the future. Can he work with these players? To me, it seems like that's not an issue, just based on what we see.
I will say additionally, what I don't want to see happen this week is that the Bruins if the Bruins come out against Florida after this practice and the games before and no show that, oh boy, I don't expect that. What I do expect is for the Bruins to have a strong effort against Florida and Tampa. I believe they're going to have strong efforts this week, but I don't want them to have those strong efforts and then be like, oh, okay, we learned our lesson from coach, and you revert back. Monty's trying to install this mentality for the playoffs, not just this week. So I don't want this Bruins roster to have a good week and then think that that's all as well. They need to understand they're sprinting today, not for Florida this week. They're sprinting today because they're not ready for April.
I was just quickly going back through other coaches just to, because ultimately, yes, it's Sweeney's call, and obviously he's only been here for a couple coaches, but you kind of could get a feel organizationally, and even going back further, there's just not really a comparable because, Mike Sullivan lost in round one, then there's a lockout year, then missed the playoffs and got fired. Before that, Robbie Fatorik lost in round one, missed the playoffs, got fired. Mike Keenan was 1 year, missed the playoffs, fired. Pat Burns lost first round, lost second round, missed the playoffs, came back to start the next season and got fired. So basically, all of those guys, took missing the playoffs for the quick hook. Obviously, they're not going to do that. So,
Well, Sweeney, Sweeney's a different GM. That's
Well, and all, but also,
yeah, but ownership has a say when it comes. I mean, they'll say like it's the general manager's decision, but those discussions happen, up the ladder too.
If you look at Julian and Cassidy, the Bruins, they don't have Cassidy and Julian had a long tenure between the two of them. They were Boston's coach for like 16 years, which that was unheard of prior to them. Like it was a carousel of coaches. But Claude Julien, his first year lost in the first round, his second year lost in the second round, his third year lost in the second round. People forget that the year they won the cup, had they lost to Montreal in that first round, he was gone.
Yeah,
maybe 100%. Even the second round. And that would be, so that means that he would have gotten fired after 2 consecutive second round appearances and then a first round again. And then Cassidy, we talked about Cassidy. I mean, Cassidy went to the second round or beyond in every single postseason besides his first and his last. And so, yeah, there's no comparables like Scott said. And even when you do have a coach that has a track record of getting better and better each year, eventually they gotta perform and they get fired.
I want to switch. Wait, I want to switch because we don't have time for this to be our topic all day. We've got a lot of questions, right?
Yeah, for 15 seconds, I was just going to say the flip side is I think Montgomery's probably pretty safe if they win a round because that feels like it meets or exceeds expectations for the season.
Yes, okay. Agreed.
Yes. So I want to switch to this one because this was also kind of breaking news this week. This was something that was concerning Fabian Lysell. So this is new to this week. The question from Liz: any updates on Lysell? He had a really bad crash into the boards. It looked like his head hit the boards. There is footage available on Twitter. Bruins Network, I believe, tweeted it out 2 or 3 days ago. The video of the moment that he kind of loses his footing, falls shoulder head first into the boards, and kind of looks like he might have gotten a concussion or might have lost consciousness. And his coach gave an update yesterday that he's going to miss significant time. So that is the latest update, and this was reported by a few people, but Mark Divers, who I saw it from first, who Mark has been on our podcast a few times, and he's someone I would say follow if you're really interested in what's going on in Providence. He also does a good job covering college hockey in the area as well. But the update was that he basically, as of right now, is going to miss significant time. I would imagine it's disappointing. He was starting to play very well, was the quote from Ryan Mougenot.
Yeah, and looking forward a little, like obviously it sucks for Lysell because he was having a good season and was, as Mougenot mentioned, was playing better recently. It sucks for Providence because there is value in going on playoff runs, and if Lysell's not back, their regular season ends basically the same time as the Bruins. If Lysell's not back, it's obviously going to hurt their chances. But then looking even beyond that, you hope it's not something that lingers into the offseason, because this just happened with Lysell last year where he got a concussion in the playoffs, and it really affected his offseason and when he was able to, start like really working out hard. And I feel like that, I don't think he would use it as an excuse. I don't know if anyone else would, but like, we know Lysell didn't have the best training camp or preseason. And I can't help but feel like having his offseason messed up at least affected that a little bit. And you can say like, hey, whatever, you got to fight through it and figure out a way to be at your best come September. But, it's a factor, and you just hope
not
that
how brain injuries work.
You just hope this isn't going to be a factor again where he now has another interrupted offseason and isn't able to do all the work that I'm sure they have planned for him this summer.
Also, it is incredibly frustrating as an athlete to feel like you're making progress and then get set back to step one again. Like to make the progress that you had. And another thing that Bruins Network reported was that throughout the season, you could see him learning each game, like getting better each game. I know we had different comments from Ujinel, like that he needed to start playing more team hockey or whatever it was, but he was getting better there. Like there's no question that this season helped him, and the healthier he got, and the more he was able to make progress. And unfortunately, if this is a season-ending injury, not only will we not see him up in Boston, which we kind of didn't think we'd see him in the last 10 games. We were more hopeful, like maybe a month ago, that he might come just to have a look, right? But certainly doesn't seem like that's possible at this point. And to clarify for this question, Liz wanted to know if there was an update on, like, it was anything broken, was there a concussion? As of right now, the only listing is upper body injury. So unfortunately, they don't usually release concussion information either. So that would probably be something that would come later when we are hearing about his recovery potentially. So that is not, as far as I know, Scott, that's not available to us right now. So upper body injury
I haven't heard anything.
Yeah, upper body injury is what the designation is. So, but anyway, sometimes we have to talk about updates from Providence too, because obviously Lysell's such a big name, and people have high hopes for him, and he's had some setbacks, and this was going to be another one, it looks like. So we will keep an eye on that now into the off season and into preseason. It sounds like this is going to be another storyline again. So thank you, Liz, for that question. Let me see if we can answer one more of Liz's before we move on. So
did Brian have anything to say?
Oh, Brian. Well, I mean, that was more of like an update.
Yeah. Nah, it's there's really not much to say. You guys kind of hit it. It's disappointing. Obviously, like, I feel like it's kind of been the perfect storm for him. There's been bad health, luck. The player at times hasn't risen to the occasion. I think the organization at times has failed him by not giving him a sniff, at least. The fact that he's probably not going to make his NHL debut now until he's at least maybe 22 or later is kind of like, for somebody who was supposed to be one of the higher skilled players in his draft, it's like eyebrow raising. But like I said, it's a perfect storm of things that have kind of gotten us to this point, and it's unfortunate.
Yeah. When you suffer 2 concussions in your minor career, you're gonna have and we don't know if this is a concussion, so I want to just be clear about that. But if that's the case, like, those are serious injuries, and they're taken way more seriously now, and those will set you back. And so people could be like, oh, you should be ready by now. Well, there's definitely circumstances that prevent him from making as much progress as he could have if he was healthy this whole time. We got a lot of questions about James Van Riemsdyk. So I'm going to go to Liz's question and then follow up with another that we got. She says, I know JVR is getting over an illness, but he seems to have really slowed down. Can you see him being healthy scratched during the playoffs in order to get Beecher back into the lineup?
So I guess I would say I could see it, but I think it's a problem for the Bruins if that's the case, because the reality is James Van Riemsdyk is one of, in my mind, 9 forwards on this roster capable of playing on the top 3 lines. I don't think Jacob Lauck is a third line forward. Justin Brezzo, maybe he gets another look. The one game he did play on the third line, that line didn't do much. So, look, James Van Riemsdyk, for the most part this season, has been productive. And I know people talk about power play. Honestly, I'm more focused on his 5-on-5 production, which was very good for most of the season on a per 60-minute basis. He wasn't always getting a ton of ice time, but he was putting up points, especially assists. And I think the Bruins need that. Like, I think they're going to need that third line, and it's been at its best when he's been on it. So let him recover from this illness, give him the time he needs. And then, hope maybe this kind of prolonged break, if maybe he's dealing with any other stuff, bumps, bruises, get that right. But I mean, specifically talking about Beecher, like James Van Riemsdyk should be playing over Johnny Beecher. He's a better player. He brings more to the table. He brings more offensively, especially. And it would be a problem if Beecher's playing over Van Riemsdyk in the playoffs.
Yeah, I mean, you can argue that maybe Beecher could be playing over other people, but I think Van Riemsdyk, as of right now, that would not be the first guy out, right? Like, it'd be more of a Lauko out first, or whomever at this point. At that point, is Pat Maroon playing well, or is Bohlquist playing well? That's more of who Brazeau, like, does he fall off? Like, that's more who Beecher would be coming in for, or rotating in for. But Brian, what do you think about Van Riemsdyk? Should he be a healthy scratch in the playoffs?
I mean, 1 point in his last 14 games suggests that he's certainly capable of being that. But I agree with what Scott said, and you can't enter the playoffs with a offensively challenged team at times and take out a guy who's got the experience and the pedigree that he can score at this level. So, and obviously he's been battling something. So,
yeah, to be fair, the last 5 games he's been he hasn't played in a few of them, and he's been battling illness since right before Montreal, because that was the first game he missed for that. So, and you know what? There is something going around right now that's pretty bad. So I think we need to wait to see him come out on the other side of it a little bit more. Because
he's also kind of streaky too. He reminds me of DeBrusk in ways where when he starts scoring, he starts scoring. So if he's in your lineup in game 1 and he gets hot, and he can get hot and be a difference maker in a first round matchup,
And he also hasn't been getting as much ice time because, like, not trying to do too much with him. He hasn't been on the first power play unit, which obviously his numbers are much better when he's net front there. I think that once he is fully healthy, if he's not already, he needs to go back in on the top power play, because we can get into how they have not been producing. And sometimes it really helps to have Van Riemsdyk out in front, getting in front of the goalie's eyes, picking up rebounds, whatnot. So I think when you get him back integrated into the top power play unit, the numbers will come back. And hopefully it was just an illness, and this isn't like more to do with poor play than health, right? Like, hopefully the recovery is just not complete yet, and we haven't seen him get back to his full health. This was from Andrew on YouTube. Says, "Hi, Andrew. Here's a mailbag question. Game 1 of the playoffs, scratch JVR, please." First of all, Andrew, that's not a question, but yes. So we have a few people that are feeling like JVR isn't playing well. And
he's not. He's not recently.
No.
Like, yeah, listen, if he's playing at the level he's played at recently, then it's on the table. My only point is, like, you got to try to get him right, because he should be your best option on that third line. And just like back at my point from earlier, even just 5-on-5, taking power play out of it, even with this recent slump, he's 4th on the team in 5-on-5 points per 60 minutes this season. The only guys ahead of him are David Pastrnak, Trent Frederick, and Charlie Coyle. You've got to try to get him back to that and get him right. Like, again, rest him now, let him get right physically. But I think if you have Jacob, again, Justin Brazeau might be a wild card. Like, he might prove capable of it. But if you have Jacob Lauck on the third line in the playoffs, I just think something went wrong. Or if you have Johnny Beecher up there, like, trying him, no. James Van Riemsdyk should be on the third line. You just have to get his game to that level.
Yeah. Is there any way that Maroon factors in higher in the lineup than the fourth line?
Just have to see it.
Yeah, again, like, maybe out of necessity, but that's just not ideal to me.
Yeah. Just throwing it out there, because he's someone that he's a wild card too right now, because we're not really sure where he is health wise and where he'll be and where the chemistry will be with him. So anyway, yeah, we get the point about the JVR not playing well. We agree has not been his best stretch of the season, but hard to say whether it's health or not like, but we haven't seen him this season really, because he's obviously towards the tail end of his career. He's a veteran, but I didn't really think he noticeably was slow earlier in the season. Like nothing worse than like he can still keep up with the NHL, and if this continues, maybe that question creeps in. But as of up until the illness, I didn't think we saw that from him. I thought that he's been, for the contract that he signed, very valuable to the team. And they're going to need him in the playoffs. So hopefully he gets healthy for that. I'm going to go to, let's see, I want to get something from someone we haven't heard from yet. Okay. So this is from Sam, who she says, Brian, to answer your question, Samantha, it's short for Samantha. So it is, you can say she.
I think we covered that earlier too, right? I think we knew that.
We may have, but yeah. I just wanted to put that in
there.
I
thought it was Samantha. I just don't think we had that confirmation until now. So thank you, Samantha. What is her question?
So this question has to do with Beecher as well. So the way things are trending with Monty right now, I'm guessing that Beecher and Lohrei will be back in Providence before the end of the regular season. Beecher due to cap issues, Lohrei to get him more time since he hasn't been playing regularly now. And her questions are about how that process would work. So can they be placed on the Bruins roster immediately? So they'd be eligible for the playoffs, or will the cap still be an issue? Like saying basically if they went down and wanted to come back up for the first round. So this is more of a logistical question, Scott.
Yeah, so I don't think either of them are going down. First off, cap not an issue. They took care of that with the trade deadline, meaning that before the deadline, there's a period of time there where they didn't have enough space to call up Beecher, which is why it had to be someone like Mark McLaughlin or Justin Brazeau even before that. They have the cap space to keep Beecher up. I know people might have seen on Twitter, I think it was on Sunday, that Beecher got sent down, and I'm using quote fingers for people not watching on YouTube. I think that's just a paper transaction. He was back at practice on Monday. So there'll be some of that because I won't bore everyone with it, but there's different rules about how many like official recalls versus emergency recalls you can make after the trade deadline. So some guys just end up on the transaction wire yo-yoing back and forth a little bit. Doesn't mean they're actually getting moved back and forth. Like we saw this with Jacob Lauko last year, to the point where it became a meme and Jacob Lauko was in on it. He was like in on it himself. He was tweeting out the Abe Simpson, walking into the room, hanging up his hat, turning around, picking up and walking back out. Like these guys aren't actually going anywhere. There's just weird cap related paper stuff that they have to do. But I think Beecher and Lohrei both here to stay at this point. I think they're part of the team, whether they're in the lineup regularly or not. Like I think they want them around.
Also, poor Mark McLaughlin gets his first call up in over a year. We never really talked about that, but scores a goal and in a game, albeit the Bruins were brutal and they got crushed by the Islanders, but not because of him. One game, one goal, +1, then back down to 95, right? So unfortunately, but anyway, just kind of random. You said McLaughlin's name, and I was like, that's right. He only played that one game and played well. Played decent.
Well, and here this kind of relates to the second part of that question, which was who else would you expect the Bruins to put on their rosters? Can it be unlimited after the last regular season game?
Yes, it is unlimited because there's no cap in the playoffs. There's no roster limit. Everyone who's in Providence will stay there for their playoff run, however long that goes. So that's first and foremost, because getting AHL playoff experience is more valuable than, just practicing in Brighton. Like if they're not going to play, there's no reason to call them up yet. After Providence's season ends, if that is before Boston's season ends, you can bring guys up and have them around. Usually if there's enough guys, they actually have their own separate practice because you don't want like 40 guys on the ice at once. You just can't run a practice that way.
Space wise doesn't really work out.
No, yeah. But yeah, you can bring guys up and have them around. And there's no cap or roster issue.
And so like it doesn't feel like we're gonna see Merkulov again, McLaughlin again. Like if we're talking about who could come up, like I just feel like we're not going to see that happen. In terms
but
of
they would be black aces, yeah.
Yes. So yes, to get to this other part of Sam's question, are those people that kind of get brought back up, including like if Beecher had gone down or Lohrei had gone down, would they be considered black aces? Can you explain what that means? So Scott, I don't know if you want to take this one, but Brian, first we'll start with what the definition of in sports, like what's a black ace?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's just somebody who kind of redshirts a little bit in the postseason, right? Travels with the team, practices with the team, but is just there in case multiple people go down with injury, right? That's how I mean, I think there's not much more to it than that.
Yeah, that's basically it. It's Province's season is over, so there's nothing for them to do down there. So you bring them up, and in case there's, like Brian said, like 5 injuries, maybe they get onto the actual game day roster. But otherwise, they're around the team, they're around the program. They can feel like they're kind of part of it. And I will say one other upside of it is, so during the playoffs, like if you say you stick with the same lineup 5 straight games because you're doing well or whatever, those guys who are out of the lineup, your 13th forward, 7th, 8th defenseman, they're going to need more practice time than the guys who are playing every game who might get more days off. So you can have them go through a full practice with the Black Aces, even if the actual NHL team isn't practicing.
Isn't there a team named the Black Aces somewhere? What am I wrong about that? But I might be. But also, when I saw this in the email, I was thinking, like, does this come from poker? Like that, I'm just completely unaware of anything about gambling, poker. I don't know. Do you guys have any idea where the?
I'm pretty sure it is from poker, but I'm not enough of a poker player to be able to explain it. I can look it up, but
yeah. Someone comment what is it from originally? Poker, I would guess, but who knows? And then the last question from Sam, all on the same line, was, would all the additions to the roster just have to watch the game up on the 9th floor like Patra with the other healthy scratches, or would they wait in Providence first for the playoffs? Which we kind of answered that part, that they wouldn't be all up here until after they lose in the playoffs, or if they lose in the playoffs before the Bruins. I actually don't know if they just like bring all of the guys that are practicing to the 9th floor. I feel like no.
Sometimes they do, but it depends on the number. Like if it's only like 5 of them, they might. If it gets to a situation where it's like you have a whole other team that's hanging around practicing, after the regular practice, I don't think they're gonna put 18 guys up there. They better not, because we're gonna run out of popcorn real fast.
I was gonna say, like, I was already in line with Pat Maroon the other day, like trying to see who could get to the coffee machine first, but no. So we obviously see Maroon up there, we see Patra up there, but I have a hard time seeing like 10 dudes walking around up there, like just like Trevor Kuntar and Georgi Merkulov and like whomever else that probably won't get in. But yeah, so theoretically, if it's a small number, yes, I think that they would be up on the 9th floor hanging out with us. So to answer, hopefully, Sam, that answered your questions. I'm going to go back to Kim, who sent us an email and also said, really enjoying Sunday skate. So thank you for listening. Her question, in my opinion, Lohrei has played the best with Carlo. Monty is clearly not going to split Lindholm and Carlo right now. But for next season, assuming they don't re-sign Grizzly, Shattenkirk, and they don't get Hannafin, could you see the pairings Lindholm, McAvoy, Lohrei, Carlo, and Weatherspoon Peak? I just don't see Lohrei on the third pairing, but I don't see him in Providence either.
I like those D pairs. I mean, it's pretty much kind of those are the. I'll put it to you this way: Kim and I are on the same wavelength because those are the 6 guys that I would have in the lineup if it were game 1. I think maybe I would have Lohrei and McAvoy instead of Lindholm and McAvoy. But now that I hear it out loud, I see that working too. Lohrei and Carlo have worked well together, and you're not concerned with Lindholm and McAvoy being able to carry those top pair minutes. So they're top pair guys. I think the question is whether or not you'd want to have them be separated or not. And so that's where that comes into play. But I like those 6. I like that third pair too.
Yeah, it depends on how you plan on using those pairings, because the reason Montgomery keeps Lindholm and Carl together isn't just that he likes their chemistry, although he obviously does. It's that he uses them a ton in the defensive zone. They're out there for every big defensive zone face-off. They start way more of the shifts there than any other pairing, way more in the D zone than the O zone. And you would not use a Lohrei Carlo pair in the same way. Like you're just not going to use Mason Lohrei that way in general. It would put him in a position where his weaknesses are getting exposed and you're not taking advantage of his strengths. So, do you put him with McAvoy because that's more of an offensive pairing? You can give them the offensive zone shifts. You can put them in favorable situations and matchups. You can still do Lohrei Carlo, but it would just change how you use Brandon Carlo in particular. So I think it's all on the table. I would also say I think they're going to add on defense this summer. So I think there's going to be someone else, whether it's in a top 4 spot or third pairing, someone's going to be pushing that group of 6. Although I would agree that it's probably not someone who's here right now.
Yeah, my thought about Lohrei next season is that I know right now you want to use him in favorable situations like in offensive zone draws and whatnot because you're trying to, you don't want to expose him. But eventually in his career, he's going to have to be just as good as Carlo at doing those things, no matter what situation he comes into. So I like
the record. I actually don't think that's ever going to happen. Doesn't mean he can't be good defensively, but he's not going to be Carlo.
But I'm saying, okay, not as good as Carlo. Like he's not going to be the same kind of shutdown guy, right? But like not liable next to Carlo and not like slowing down Carlo's ability to be Carlo, right? So like there's going to reach a point in his career where we're not saying, oh, we don't want him like on that pair because he's going to impede what Carlo does best, or or he needs help from McAvoy, and that's who like. Eventually, he's not going to be someone who needs help, like doing, you know what I mean? Just in his development process, like he's not quite there yet. But if we don't have any more about his development, this question also kind of applies to Lohrei. George on Twitter says, will Montgomery make changes to the PP, add Brazeau, subtract McAvoy, be less predictable? Love McAvoy, but power play is not his strength. Would rather see Lohrei.
Well, there's no doubt McAvoy is supposed to be the guy. He's one of the best defensemen in the world, top 5 defensemen. He really shouldn't be losing his job to anybody, whether it be Lohrei or anybody really, unless it was Adam Fox, Quinn Hughes, Cale Makar. Nobody should be taking that job from McAvoy. If they do, it's a testament to him losing it, which I think is kind of what George is getting at here, right? He's more disappointed in McAvoy on the power play. Lindholm is also a guy that has experience running a power play too, but I have a tough time this late in the year. Obviously, I want Lohrei in the lineup, but I have a tough time giving him the reins of the top unit right now. You should have done it earlier if we wanted to see what it looked like. I think it's too little, too late. I know the power play is struggling, but it's a tough sell for me. Maybe see what it looks like for a game or two, but it's a tough time to try that.
Yeah, I also think Kevin Shattenkirk does a good job on the power play. Now,
yeah, him too.
He has to be in the lineup first, and I will say like the second power play unit might be a reason, might be a way that helps Shattenkirk get in the lineup. But to your point, like it's a pretty big shakeup to take McAvoy off the top power play unit. And I would say the same thing about Marchand, who I also think has struggled on the power play recently. Those are guys like you just need to figure it out and to just do the job better. Like they've both been good on the power play in the past, especially Marchand. I think McAvoy's always left a little to be desired on the power play, but he's been capable. He's been the quarterback on some good power plays. So you just need them to lock in, and you need the other guys in that top unit to lock in. It would be a fairly significant shakeup at this point in the season to take one or both of them off, to take someone wearing a letter off the top unit when they've been there all year. But I don't know, hey, Montgomery's swearing in practice and making them do wind sprints. Maybe that could be like the next thing if he still feels like he has to do something to get guys' attention.
The risk is taking McAvoy even farther off his game offensively. Like, whereas sometimes the power play frees you up to take more chances, try to get more shots through, be a little bit more, have a little bit more movement in the zone. If sometimes that's what sparks a guy to get going offensively 5-on-5 too. So there's a risk there in taking Marchand or McAvoy off the power play and just putting them even further out of the flow. Because in theory, that should be where you're gaining some of your confidence from, right? I know that's not been what's happening now. And then in terms of Lohrei on the power play, sometimes they go to that second unit with two defensemen, Lohrei and Shattenkirk. And, that I'm happy with the looks that they've gotten this season. When it's those guys, I do have other questions in my mind about what the two units should be. Because as of right now, I want JVR back on the top unit when he's healthy and playing, like when he's playing like the JVR we saw earlier. Net front, because I don't think Zucker or Coyle have been doing great at that recently, which means you're going to take one of them off the top unit and put them on the second unit if you're putting Brazeau net front on the first unit. Did my camera just turn off? Can you guys still see me? Can I froze? Oh no.
Bridget's frozen.
Wait a minute, guys. Oh, my camera.
Now she's gone for good.
We can still hear you though.
Yeah, we can still hear you.
Wait, I'm just gonna have to turn my computer one off because I'm pretty sure my GoPro just died. But I'll let you talk about it while I try to fix this.
Yeah, so whether it's JVR or I've said it before, I would not hesitate to put Justin Brazeau on the top unit, at least to try it and see what it looks like. He's obviously done an excellent job in that net front role in the second unit. So listen, playing net front's playing net front. Like, I know you might look at him and be like, well, Justin Brazeau, does he really fit in with Pastrnak, McAvoy, Marchand, all you big names? And it's like, I don't know, why not? Like, if he's doing a good job, he's doing a good job. Yeah. I still think the bumper spot, unfortunately, is just a spot where I just don't think they have anyone who's great at that job. Like, I think all season they've struggled to find someone who fits there. And, that's probably part of, McAvoy and Marchand, why I feel like they have to do more as shooters, because Bergeron was a shooter when he was in that bumper spot. Like, that was a go-to play for them, was set him up for that quick snapshot he had. It just doesn't seem like that plays there this year, or they don't have guys who can execute it. But yeah, that second unit, they've done some creative things. Like, they've put Brazeau and Frederick, who you would think, are both net front guys, and they sort of rotate a little, or they're kind of on like each doorstep. I don't know if you try I don't know if you try something like that with the top unit.
I really liked that. I mean, because when you saw, I think it was on the goal that DeBrusk scored just after the power play, Frederick was getting whack after whack, and then Brazeau was coming whacking at, like, there was two guys just creating chaos, getting shots like hard off the pads. It's going right back on net. I personally liked when Frederick was on the power play with Brazeau. Two players that can really make strong moves to the net, two guys that are good at puck possession. They both have some intensity to their game that they were able to bring out in that second unit on the power play. So I liked Frederic. My camera's back, except for now it's my laptop camera, which clearly is not as nice as my GoPro. But any other thoughts on the...
Welcome to my world. That's
Yeah,
all I
same.
have.
That's all I've got.
Well, see, guys, I went above and beyond, and I set up a whole system with my GoPro that apparently needs to be charged. So anyway, usually it stays on when it's plugged in, so that leads me to believe my cord is not working right. But anyway, I want to go to, because we're low on time, we haven't talked about goaltending at all, so I want to go to...
Oh, I'll talk to you guys later.
Okay, no, but this is this, we can do quicker
No,
or
I know, I'm
however
just
we
kidding.
want to do.
I'm
So
just
we
joking.
have this YouTube comment from George who comments on a lot of our stuff. We appreciate you for chiming in. This is from him. He says the Bees should not ride a goalie for all 7 games in a series because by definition that goalie would have lost 3 games. The idea should be no more than 3 games in a row, no matter what.
So this is, I don't need it to be like a hard and fast rule, but it is kind of like, it is more or less what I'm in line with, which is you haven't ridden either of these goalies for more than like 2 or 3 straight starts all year, all last 2 years. I just think and Montgomery said it himself when I asked him in Montreal, like it's a big ask to then expect one goalie to shoulder the whole load when they haven't done it all year. So I think you have 2 goalies. I know Swayman has struggled recently. I didn't like the last 2 goals Allmark gave up on Saturday. Obviously, he'd been playing much better before that. But I think as long as both goalies are pretty much on their game, come playoffs, like I want to use both of them. And I would be in favor of a rotation. It doesn't have to be a strict rotation. But yeah, 2 or 3 starts in a row and then the other guy gets in makes sense to me. Now, obviously, if one guy's struggling and the other has 3 straight great games, it would be like almost impossible to then go back to the other guy. Like you would probably have to ride that guy at that point. But I think that mindset is like in line with where I am.
Brian's just like, something's going on with Brian.
There's just so much here. It's like, listen, George, I appreciate the comment, and what he says actually it is funny the way he worded that. He's like, if you ride a goalie for a whole series, that means they've lost 3 games, and
it's true.
That's true. At least 3 games. That George, I've never thought of it that way. That's true. Obviously, there's situations where a series lasts 4 games or 5 or 6. Obviously, that scenario George paints, obviously, as he alluded to, is only if it's a 7-gamer. Yeah, like I said last week, guys, I don't know. I don't know. There's too many ideas coming from left field, right field, and center. It's like start one guy 2 games and only 2 games. Start a guy 3 games and split them every other. I don't care. I'm done. It's going to be a crapshoot no matter what. One of the guys is going to suck. Monty's going to play the other guy, and then it's going to be like, all right, do we keep going with the guy that just played better? This is how it's going to go. This is how it's going to go. Whatever goalie Monty puts on the bench game 1 is going to come back in game 2 after the Bruins lost game 1 and have a great game. And you're going to be in a situation where the goalie who started game 1 lost, the goalie who started game 2 won, and then it's going to be right off the bat, who do you go with, the rotation or the guy who won game 2? Scott would go with the guy who won game 2. A lot of people would say, go back to the rotation. A lot of people, it doesn't matter. Whoever you talk to has a different opinion. I don't know. Let's just see how it plays out. I'm done. I'm defeated.
Even my mom chimes in on this one. She'd be like, Bridget, you want the rotation? I'm like, do you watch the game? She's like, I know that they need to decide about this.
This is honestly what would happen though, guys, because that's what's going to happen, because of course that's what's going to happen. Monty's going to choose a starter for game 1, and that guy's he's not going to play well in game 1 because that's just the way it's going to go. And then game 2 they're going to win, and right away game 3 you're going to have the big question, who starts game 3? And like I said, you're going to have people that are going to be like, go back to the game 1 starter because it's the rotation. And then you're going to have the Scotts of the world saying, well, I'll play the rotation, but I'm going to go with the guy who just won game 2 and game 3.
And then,
So I'm
the Andrew Raycrofts of the world that say, don't F around with a rotation at all.
Exactly. So it's gonna come to the forefront right away.
Guys, hold on. I'm gonna go get my grandfather, my aunt, and his physical therapist. I'm just gonna see what they have to say.
Just gonna poll them. Yeah. Okay, great. Then we'll pass that along to Monty and see if he takes our advice.
Do you guys co-sign on that though? That it's gonna be game 3 and this whole thing is gonna come to a head already?
Yeah.
With like who should you play, whatever, blah blah blah.
So
game three is gonna be.
It's gonna be game 3. It's gonna be game 3.
Here's how it doesn't. Here's how it doesn't pile up. Is they both play well. You have 2 goalies going well. If they're playing well and you're presumably winning games, and then it's not an issue. Where it becomes an issue is if you lose or one of them struggles or they both struggle. Like,
but of course, they're not going to win every game on the way to a Stanley Cup. So.
Guys, I'm telling you,
you can get good goaltending and lose games.
Yeah,
whoever that's true. But I'm telling you,
they're not going to play all good games on the way to a Stanley Cup.
Best case scenario for the Bruins is that they play Toronto in round 1, which, by the way, as Scott has said, Swayman owns Toronto, so do you even want to do a split there? But regardless, they'll play Toronto in round 1. If the Bruins had a perfect world, they'd win both games, each goalie winning a game, and kumbaya. But it's not going to be the case. It's going to be 1-1 heading to Toronto, and it's going to be who do you play? And that's the way it's going to be. And that's great because it causes drama and storylines, and we will be here to talk all about it. Bridget, I know you and Scott have places to be. Is there any other questions you wanted to get to?
I'm going to say this right now because it's our last goalie question from Kaylee on YouTube. If they never planned on riding Sway in the playoffs, then why try to trade Ullmark?
If they never plan on riding Swayman in the playoffs,
well,
I think things just changed. I mean, they couldn't. They tried to trade Ullmark and they couldn't. And once you have a guy that you know is on your team the rest of the way, you have to adjust your game plan. I think that's what happened.
Yeah, I think they would have been ready to ride Swayman if they trade Ullmark. Like, you're not then going to rotate Swayman and Brandon Bussey. It's Swayman's net at that point. But you use the team you have, right? So if trading Ullmark made you better other places, then you say, all right, Sway, it's your net. This is your team. Time to go. But because you didn't trade Ullmark, couldn't trade him, now he's still here. So it's like, all right, your options are either you still say we're going to ride Swayman and you basically just put Ullmark in mothballs, or you say we still have 2 really good goalies and maybe we should still use both of them. So the fact that they weren't able to trade Ullmark obviously changed. They would have done something different if he was traded than him still being here, but you have to use the roster that's in front of you.
I'm so mad I didn't get to the questions about college hockey. But by the time we're recording next, that shouldn't have started yet.
What a bummer. I don't have to talk about how awesome BC is again.
Yeah, well, we're going to next podcast. I'm going to get to more of these questions about, college hockey because Scott, BU is still in the tournament. All right, UMass made it by a thread. So
I mean that BU BC championship game, that was the equivalent of Home Alone when Kevin says, "Buzz, your girlfriend." Woof. That's what that was, Scott. That was a woof game. What happened to your Terriers? We can save it for another pod, but oh boy, as Bridget said, they're not done. National championship, but
you can't take penalties against BC. Like you have to basically completely stay out of the box against that power play. 4 first-round picks on their top power play unit. It's like BU's had a good penalty kill all year, and even they can't stop that power play.
Is it fair to say that BU has the best player, but BC has the better team?
No.
Probably, yeah.
You think Macklin Celebrini? I mean, like Macklin Celebrini is as good as the guys. As there's like 4 guys on BC that are at least very close to how
None of
good
them,
Macklin.
none of them are 17 with 31 goals in
No,
college.
they're
hockey.
not. But Cutter Gauthier is older.
Celebrin's the best. He'll be the best NHL player from that group.
Oh yeah, he's gonna go number 1 overall.
I got a
but I'm saying
dog
it's him versus 4 of him, like 4 guys that are comparable to him on a given night. Like you have that entire freshman line they're all also first round picks from the last draft.
That's the BU Terrier you hear barking in the background right there.
Yeah, I hear
we're coming back.
Setting the dogs on us.
I was just gonna say someone doesn't agree with Bridget.
Yeah, it's not Melvin this time, guys. And because I shut the door, I wasn't trying to get bit by anyone this time. So no, Xerxes isn't here to bite me. I'm still recovering from Melvin getting me because he thought my finger was a stick. But anyway, we're going to get more into that because we're huge college hockey people. So at some point during next podcast, I will circle back to some of these questions about college hockey, including Gauthier, which is what one of the questions was about. So anyway, because we got to go, Scott's going to get in the car, go light up Miami or something, wherever you're going. Have fun. How many margaritas did you have at the airport yesterday?
I'm not really a margarita person, so 0.
Get out of here. I'm kicking you off. Get out of here. Bye.
What do you want?
Not a margarita person. Scott, get out. So what did you drink then? Just more beer?
Yeah, that's it. I'm a beer person.
Nice. Oh, by the way, I just want to mention real quick.
True red-blooded American, Bridget.
Scott McLaughlin has inspired me, by the way, in life in many ways, but in one way recently is, guess what I've been picking up lately? Going to the movies. I've been going to the movies.
There we go.
Yeah, I'm doing like going to the movies for like once a month. It's good. It's good to go to an old-fashioned movie. I saw the new Ghostbusters, and what did I watch last month? Hell was it? Oh, Kung Fu Panda 4.
Wow. Brian's a big
I have not seen either
of
those yet. So.
They're good. They're good. Anyway, so Scott's inspiring everybody, but
not me. I like beer, but margaritas. You're not changing my mind about margaritas. They're delicious. I'm probably gonna go have one now after I post this. So anyway.
All right. Well, let's let you do that. I know Scott has things to do as well. So next recording session will be after the Panthers and Lightning. Is that what we decided on? Okay. All right. Well, everybody enjoy those games. Enjoy your week, and we will talk to you soon. Hey, guys. Thanks for watching the Skate Podcast. If you want to see more of our videos, visit our playlist.
Not in front of a screen? You can listen to us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Don't forget to follow us on social media. And if you enjoyed this video, please don't forget to give us a thumbs up, subscribe to our channel, and leave a comment.